I'm gonna take this and create this beautiful high-end marble table. Stay tuned and enjoy the video. What I really wanna show you guys is how I'm gonna take two dies, and I'm using Alumilite dye. You can use any type of dye that you want or paste and create different opacities in our epoxy. By doing this, we're gonna create depth and make it look very realistic. All right, so we're gonna start with our clear epoxy, and I'm gonna split it up into different cups. Now, I want most of my epoxy to be clear. So I'm gonna start off, we'll just start off with equal amounts, and then we can kind of change from there. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be tinting everything in these cups with different amounts of the dyes. And then actually what I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna leave the rest of this. I'm gonna do a grease coat. All right, so now I know I want most of it to be clear, so we'll just add. So this is how I cook, y'all. This is my measuring technique. Very sophisticated. All right, we're gonna start off first of all with our white Alumilite opaque dye. Now, if you don't have the Alumilite opaque, you can use just about any white dye or a paste that is approved for your epoxy. Just resin, Color Obsession, Color Passion, all of these I have available on our website. We've been doing a lot of research, and we're finding that those that really overload, they don't pay attention to how much white tint they're putting in the epoxy. If they just dump it in there, what's happening is it's causing some reactions with your epoxy. So you want to be very mindful and do a little bit at a time to get the opacity that you want. As soon as you reach that opacity, then you want to stop. What I mean about opaque is I don't want to be able to see through the dye to the grain on my stick. So that's how I determine how opaque I want my product. All right, so that's what I call whole milk. All right, let's get a visual. This is whole milk. Now I'm gonna create skim milk. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that white and I'm gonna create a translucent white. That looks good. All right, so now I have skim milk and now I have whole milk. All right, so now the next one we're gonna do is gray. So I'm gonna add a little bit of the white, and I don't really need it super opaque. And then I'm gonna come in here and add a touch of black. Now, when we add that black, I'm not gonna add it directly into the cup because I want a tiny bit. And actually that's gonna be too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rub it off the table and add just a little bit at a time. Oop, that's a little too much, so I'm gonna take my stick out, come in here with a clean stick. All right, it's a little darker than I want, so I think I'm gonna add a little bit more white. That's why I don't overload the white to begin with, and so I still have a little bit to work with. All right, that's what I want. Okay, so there we go. Now, if you don't want so much contrast, you can do your gray lighter, and you can actually leave the gray out altogether. All right, so now we're gonna come in with straight black. Very opaque. And then our last cup is gonna be my favorite, clear with diamond dust. And we're gonna load up our diamond dust. Diamond dust is a very, very small particle, smaller than glitter. It doesn't change the color of our epoxy. It just gives it a beautiful glitter, and it's so light that it just floats and stays suspended in the epoxy. All right, those are our colors we're gonna work with. Let's get started. All right, so I've mixed up for this project, I'm using 3 ounces per square foot, but then I added 4 ounces, 2 and 2 for my accents. You don't have to do that, but I want to have extra material just in case we do some fun things at the end. I left some clear in the bucket. Pour that out. Now, those of you that have watched me mix and have watched the video where we show you how to mix, you know that I do scrape the edge of my bucket because I've mixed it thoroughly, and during the mixing process, we actually scrape our bucket, mix again, scrape our bucket, mix again before we ever pour it out. This is to ensure that we don't have sticky spots and we're not wasting any of our product by transferring it to different buckets. Alrighty, now I'm gonna come in and we're gonna do a skim coat. I've got a Bondo spreader and a skim coat. All that is a very thin layer of epoxy, and the reason we do that is epoxy likes to go where epoxy's already been. So by doing this, we're creating a very greasy finish or substrate so that the epoxy, when we put the rest of the epoxy down, it can flow out really nicely. So, and this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just gonna pull it nice and tight. I'll go over the edge here in just a minute. Just wanna cover everything. Now, guys, if you are doing a round table like this is a pro tip. Put your table on a Lazy Susan. Easy access. Now I'm gonna kind of bring it over the edge a little bit and let it kind of get right up to that edge. If it rolls over, that's good. But then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my hand, and this is super important. Take your hand, rub your edges, and help that epoxy run over your edge. We've rounded over our edge with a 1/4 inch round over bit, top and bottom, so that the epoxy, when it rolls, it's not gonna build up a ledge right here. It's gonna roll under and you're gonna have a nice pretty edge. But take that epoxy, help it roll over. Once I've got it all spread out, it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Don't stress over this skim coat. All you need is epoxy on the top. Doesn't matter if you have large puddles, doesn't matter. Next, let's start laying our colors down. Actually, I'm gonna torch it really quick. I've entrained a few bubbles on the surface, so very quickly. First, our white opaque dye, and we're gonna be very random with this, guys. So don't overthink it. Just get it out on the surface. Now I'm gonna leave a little bit in my cup. I'm not gonna scrape it because I wanna leave a little bit for later on, just in case. Then we're gonna come in with my gray. We're gonna kind of go in our negative space, just kind of start filling in. Don't forget to kind of go over your edges ever so often. Now the gray, I'm gonna go ahead and just dump out. All right, now I'm gonna come in with my, let me tell you what, I'm gonna come in with my clear. How about that? We have a lot of the clear. So I'm just gonna start moving it in between everything, laying it all down. Anywhere I may be shy, I'll drop my cup, all right? Now, last, we're gonna come in with the transparent or the skim milk epoxy. And we're gonna start pouring that down. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Drop that, let that epoxy kind of run out of those cups. Now we'll come and torch lightly. Now, when you use the Bondo spreader, don't grab a hold of it and push everything. Take 2 fingers and very lightly, you're just gonna kind of meld. And as you meld, you're gonna change directions. Don't go the same direction and don't go over one area more than once or twice. You're just trying to spread that epoxy out, get it to cover, but not create one color. If I over meld my product, then all I'm doing is mixing the product on the table and I'm gonna have one color, not different densities and ratios of my color. Okay, I love this. All right, once you get everything done in the middle, you can take your hand, make sure it's clean, okay? Mine's not. See, I have it that's black on me. Make sure that you clean really well, because once I start melding, if I run some of that color in the top, we're gonna be in trouble. So I'm gonna clean my gloves with some isopropyl alcohol, get really clean, And then we'll go to the next step. This is how I cook. I'm very messy. All righty, torch it a little bit. Now I don't want to use too much heat. If I continue to just torch and torch and torch and torch, what's gonna happen, my epoxy is gonna become very fluid and I'm gonna lose control of what I want it to do. Now, this is where I can also now start looking and start pushing this product over the edge so that I get really pretty edges. Make sure I don't have any surface tension. If I do, just tap it. The epoxy is gonna continue to self-level for a few hours. That's why it's very important also that your surface be very level. Okay, I love that. Now make sure if you're doing a white finish that you use an epoxy that has the highest amount of good quality UV protection. I'm using the Art Coat and I highly recommend that. All righty, so guys, let's hit it with a little bit of alcohol just to create some really cool effects on the top. And then we're gonna see, we may call it a day. Probably not, but maybe. All right, here we go. Nice and high, and I'm just gonna barely squeeze my trigger. So I'm just putting a little bit of alcohol on the top. I'm not putting a lot. You put too much alcohol, what will happen is your design will become very blurry and it will run. It'll actually compromise the integrity of your epoxy. Now I'm gonna let it sit, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then we're gonna reevaluate and go from there. All right, so this is really what I want you guys to learn from this sort of technique. By using different opacities, can you see how we're getting a 3D look? You're seeing the white substrate, then you're seeing the white opaque dye, and then in here, kind of as a shadow, you're seeing the translucent white, and then we've got our gray. So then when we hit it with the alcohol, that gives us this really beautiful, detailed 3D look. All right, guys, I absolutely love this. It is amazing. This could be a finish all on its own, but guess what? We're gonna go to the next step. Actually, probably 2, maybe 3 more steps, just because we can. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in. Remember I told you I wanted to save a little bit of my white opaque dye? This is why. I love creating veins, kind of almost like fracture veins or fault lines, I guess. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna literally run veins all over my piece, very random. Now, because this epoxy has been sitting in the cup, it's starting to thicken up. So my veins are going to stay a little more distinct. They're not gonna move as much as if I were to do this immediately after I poured my epoxy. So the fact that it's been kind of sitting, I love. Now, I like to do this and then tilt it. If you don't have the ability to tilt, it's okay. But by tilting, I'm gonna get what we call a shift, and it's gonna kind of move those veins just a little bit and make them look very realistic. Almost gives them almost like a little shadow. So by moving that, it's very organic and it softens them down as well. Doesn't make them quite as distinct. And I love that. Just kind of catches my eye. All right, we can stop here. And this could also be a finish on its own, knowing that these white lines are gonna continue to move just a little bit and soften as the epoxy gets older. Now I could hit it with alcohol again, and it would cause the veins to get a little more organic, but because I know I'm fixing to go another step and I know I'm gonna be putting alcohol, I don't wanna put alcohol right here. But if this is where you wanted to stop, I would hit it one more time with a little bit of alcohol, and it's gonna cause those white lines just to have a little bit of character. And I need to know in the comments below, would you stop here or go to the next step, which is what I'm fixing to do? So I love contrasting marble, high contrast, black and white. I love that. So remember that cup of black that we did? Very lightly, and this is gonna be determined by you and what you like. So I'm not gonna go crazy with it. I'm just gonna put a little, and I'm gonna be very random, so random. And I'm gonna put some of that color. Don't overthink it, y'all. I'm good at not thinking. How about that? All right, now, 2 things you can do. You can tilt and get those veins to kind of start moving and sliding, or you can actually meld it. And that's actually what I'm gonna do. Take my Bondo spreader again, very lightly. I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna start melding it. Now you'll notice I'm not melding it across the whole surface. I'm just kind of melding it kind of right on top of the veins, because I have a lot of really neat patterns in my white that I don't want to hit. You can even get a smaller Bondo spreader if you wanted, so that you're getting less surface tension of your Bondo hitting the surface. And I'm barely putting any weight on this, guys. I'm not pushing down hard at all. I'm just barely taking that color and moving it. All right, I love that. I'm gonna let that sit for just a minute. Let the reaction of the epoxy and that color mix. A little bit of heat. And now we're gonna come back with our alcohol. Now this is plain isopropyl alcohol. I don't have any mica powders mixed in it. All right, nice and high. And we're gonna hit it again. Kind of just going over that black area. You can go over the whole table because you will reactivate some of that white. There we go. All right, now you can't judge it right now. You have to let the alcohol dissipate and kind of work with the epoxy. I absolutely love this right here. Oh my goodness. And because we've got the black and I drug it over the white, we're getting variations of gray as well, which is really cool. Wow, I love this. Now, if you want to heat it, make sure all your alcohol has dissipated. Heat it up, and you can actually tilt and cause it to move a little bit. And just that little bit of movement will really cause your piece to look organic. Okay, guys, this is gorgeous on its own. I've seen slabs look just like this, but we're gonna actually go one more step, which is gonna make it even more bold. So know that you guys can stop any place that you want to, but now we're gonna get a little bolder. So I still have some black, and I mixed up some of our 007 mica powder by Color Obsession 007. Now, there are substitutes that you can use. You don't want to use a mica powder that's going to sink. You want to use a mica powder or a paste that's going to want to stay on top of your surface. All right, so I'm going to take my black cup, and I'm going to take a little bit of this gold, and I'm going to drizzle it in the cup. See how I'm doing that? And I'm not going to mix it. I'm just going to drizzle it. Now, I'm going to take that very carefully, and I'm going to make some veins. I like to follow my veins and then kind of get out of line so it makes them look really organic. Now, once you see the gold kind of stops melding into the black, whoop, that's okay. I'm going to take my finger, play with that one. I'm going to add some more gold in there. So just get real organic with your veins. Just make sure you don't go all in one direction. Now, again, you can be as busy as you want on this. You can add a little vein, you can add a lot of vein. That's totally up to you. I love high contrast marble. All right, now we're gonna come in with straight gold ever so often, just to give it a pop. I don't want that gold to jump out and bite me, so I'm not gonna put it everywhere over the table. And tilt it. I love tilting. It's just gonna get that gold and that black to kind of move just a little bit. Now it's moving slow because we've been working this epoxy for about 30, 45 minutes now, which is good because I don't want it to move fast. See what happens when it starts to move? You get this shift And that's what I'm going for, is that shift. Now, while my epoxy's still a little warm, I'm gonna hit it with some alcohol, and that's gonna cause those final veins to have a little bit of reaction. Not a lot, but look at this, guys. Look at this vein right here. Look at this right here. That's what happens when you use a metallic powder that floats on top of your surface. It gives that 3D look because your black is underneath and that gold is floating on top. I love it. I love the depth because we use different opacities. I love the gold. I love everything about it. So this could be a finish all on its own, and it is. So let me know in the comments below, where would you stop? I still have epoxy with diamond dust. I completely forgot, y'all. So now we're gonna take it one more step. So my epoxy is starting to thicken up. I love it because now that the epoxy is thick, when I lay these veins down, they're gonna stay very distinct. I love that, but they're also gonna kind of sink and it's gonna look like there's little pieces of mineral deposit. So here we go. All right, I'm gonna just very lightly come over the top, very random. You can also follow a vein. If you wanted to follow one particular vein, you could do that as well. I also like to take and just put little dots, make it look like little aggregates. Makes it look very realistic. Oh my gosh, this is absolutely perfect. I love it. It's gonna catch the light just enough to really bring some interest. I'm gonna follow this big piece right there. I love it. I think I'm gonna add a little drop right there. I could go crazy with this, y'all. I love this. I know all of you out there are saying, walk away, Rhonda. I know, I have the t-shirt. I can't. I love this. Now I'm done. Promise. Now tell me what you would do. Would you have put the diamond dust like I did? Let me know in the comments below. All right, guys, if you like this and you want to see more like this, subscribe to my channel. Don't just give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. Then hit the bell. That way you guys will know every single time we release a video or we go live, which is every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. Also, all of these products that you see, we actually sell them on our website, guys. We do free shipping on all orders over $100, and we do same-day shipping if you call us and make your order online, actually, do it online, before noon. Best of all, I want you guys to remember, don't be scared. Move forward and be creative. Love you, and I'll see you in the next video.